Yeah, so Living Desire, this is not an embellished item. You can straight up just run this. So, and this is definitely, it's one of the better trinkets. It's one of the better crafted trinkets, I think. I don't know if it's insane. Like, again, very few trinkets and items are implemented in Simcraft right now. So, once they are, we'll be able to get a better idea of, like, is this good, is it not, whatever. I was happy to use this one. And then there's, like, I've got the Ruby Whelp shell on, which is, like, quite literally doing nothing in these keys, from my understanding. Like, I'm pretty sure I'm just using a dead trinket. Like, did it give me any damage in that last key? It looks like no. But, yeah, so let me just, I want to hop over to the dummies, because I am so sure that one of these days, when I use this 24-hour thing, it's going to do something. The Academy one is cracked. Like, so, yeah, I want to be, like, super clear, right? Is that if you go to Preheat stream, expect top-tier play and top-tier gear. When you come to my stream, expect top-tier banter and fun, and maybe not perfect gear and play. So, strictly speaking, I've been running this, like, Ruby Whelp shell because, like, I think it's cute and it's funny, but it's clearly not a good trinket. In fact, here, let's use the on-use effect. It's top tier something if you come here. Just, you know, it's maybe not the important stuff. Let me show you what this thing does. So, we'll use the 24-hour effect. Let me just get into combat just for fun, because it doesn't really do anything, but... Okay, he just, like, spat at me or something. Yeah. So, my Ruby Whelpling belches and gives a hearty grin as smoke rises from his nose. And that's it. That's the on use. It's this one here, the Emerald Coach's Whistle. And so this one is, yeah, you select a target-friendly player to coach on a 1-minute cooldown. Your helpful spells and abilities have a chance to pep you and your coached ally up, giving you stats for 10 seconds. I don't quite remember what stats it gives you, but it's good. And then my understanding is that you have a chance to proc that effect, and also your partner has a chance to proc that effect. And so you just have ridiculous uptime. It's mastery? Yeah, then there you go, right? It's so good. So this is definitely, like... I'm not going to say they're going to nerf this one, but, I mean, this is definitely one to look out for if they don't, right? So, I think that's accurate. Hey, YouTube, Jericho here. I just want to say a huge thank you for all of the support and kind words over these last few weeks. So many of you have been checking out the stream on Twitch, and even more of you these videos on YouTube, and I'm super grateful. We're currently closing in on our goal of 1,000 subs here on YouTube, and I can see that right now only 18% of you are currently subscribed. So if you're enjoying my stuff, please do hit that subscribe button. It means a lot to me, and will help me continue making more great videos for you guys. Towards the end here, actually, I do have a little bit on Profession Crafted. So this was kind of your question, was like, what, you know, crafted items are you going to use for you know, in long run, like at 70, and I'm not 100% sure yet. Like, this is, it's based on kind of talking to Saildur and roughly what we're thinking, right? But the potion duration one is obviously just very strong, especially for Evoker, where you're dealing like a lot of your damage in that first like 1 minute window with Bloodlust. So having that 1 minute potion is quite nice. So this is, and the thing is that you can stack embellishments. Like, you can stack the same one twice. So in this case, you can actually run 2 of these and get a minute duration on the potion, which is quite good. One of these brings it from 30 to 45 seconds. The second one brings it to a minute. So having a minute on your combat potion is quite good. But suppose you don't want that. Suppose you're happy with 45 seconds. Suppose they nerf it in some way. What other kind of options are gameplay? Well, the Elemental Lariat, the neck piece, is obviously definitely a really good option. So just looking at
3 sockets, that's so strong.
Yeah, so it's the 3 sockets you can actually get no matter what.
Ridiculous, yeah.
You can actually just always have 3 sockets in your neck. It's just you're using a consumable. The Elemental Lariat embellished effect is this: your spells and abilities have a chance to empower one of your socketed gems, granting that stat for 12 seconds. So this one's just really nice.
470 of it. Oh god.
It's a lot of stat. It has pretty good uptime. It's for 12 full seconds. And it's always a stat that you find useful, because it's what you have your gems set up with, right? So, just good. So Lariat's a really good option. So I dare say, and it sounds a little boring, but right now your embellishments are probably 2 of the potion one or 1 of the potion one in this kind of thing. There are a couple of other ones. So right now on this character, I'm running this thing, which is your spells and abilities have a chance to rally you and your 4 closest allies within 30 yards to victory, increasing verse. And it's not very good for the verse, but if I look at like, all right, I dare say it might not be working, because I would definitely expect to see somewhere here the buff this thing. Yeah, I don't think it's clearly broken, right? All right, here, let me just send a quick bug report. I don't think this thing is correctly buffing allies. I am definitely getting the buff, but I don't think my allies. Alright, whatever. Yeah, so anyway, not necessarily something that you'll actually run, this thing, but it does have good stats on the base item, so crit mass on the item, not bad. And then giving 4 other people 211 verse on, and here's the crazy part, right? This is basically 100% uptime on the thing. This thing has crazy uptime. It's like a 20 procs per minute or something. Like, it's outrageous. So there's a world where, like, you technically run this, because, like, dishing out just, like, this really does say, like, plus 1,000 versatility, but to your raid, not your person. Yeah, it might be broken, but it's very good. So if you have an item that just says, like, at the bottom of it, just plus 1,000 verse. Like, if I showed you these pants and they said equip, you know, 379 crit, 278 mastery, 1,000 verse, right? You'd be like, of course I would use those. Even though verse is my worst stat, it just has 1,000 stat on it, always, right? Well, that's kind of what this is. It's just, it's split amongst 5 people. It's just that, you know, it does compete, obviously, with, like, potion extension and or Lariat, right? So you do have to kind of do some math and go, okay, 1,000 verse always, how does that compare to 471 of a stat I want for 12 seconds, not up always? And if I look at, like, Lariat, which should also just be on here, right? That is 34% uptime on this fight. So, and is that a good fight to look at? Maybe I can look at the last one's similar, right? This one was 20%, so we can be generous and say 30% uptime on this thing, right? So 30% uptime on 471 mastery for 12 seconds. Versus, yeah, so 30% of 471 versus 1,000 always up. I think the verse is technically winning out, but you can be greedy and say that the mastery is all yours, so yeah, anyway, I'm not necessarily gonna say, you know, you need to use the buff your friend's pants, but I think these are technically a good option. Seems pretty competitive, even though verse is not the good stat for Evoker. So anyway, I think that's basically what I put in that in my Google Doc, though, for now, is just you know, the potion thing seems good, Elemental Lariat seems good, the pants seem like they're proccing kind of ridiculously frequently, so. And then, like, yeah, I mean, so for M plus trinkets, right, and, like, this one's a healing one from Ruby Life Pools, the Ruby Whelp Shell, like, I don't know what this thing's supposed to be doing, but it doesn't seem like it's doing much, ever. I don't know. Poor guy. Whatever. The whistle is obviously nuts. So yeah, it's really good. These, like, you know, firing arrows on kill effects are kind of meme. They're kind of memey. Like, I've never really felt like they were particularly strong. Then this, yeah, the tome from Azure Vault as well, this like on use ground circle, you gain int and lose crit, is kind of ludicrously powerful as well. Even though there's a downside with the loss of crit, it's just such a strong effect on a 4-minute cooldown. So I don't know what the meta is going to be around this one. I don't like these sorts of effects personally, so my ideal is for them not to be particularly strong, but I mean it kind of looks really strong. So the primal, oh yeah. So let's we can go back to the raid ones real quick. So here's the dilemma with that. Where are the raid trinkets? Okay, so this one obviously is going to be an extremely good trinket for most classes. There's no question in my mind. And so this is the deal, right? This thing has a different effect if you're a DPS, if you're a tank, or if you're a healer. In fact, it might even have a different effect as a melee, I can't remember. But as a ranged caster, this increases your crit. And generally speaking, that's pretty good. Most classes are into crit, or at least benefit from it to some extent. And so this should be fine. I don't know what the deal is with like fire mages these days, if they gear around crit or not, or whatever. Shadow's in a really weird spot right now where like
mastery.
What's that?
I think fire one saves mastery because
yeah, so
auto crit.
Yeah, that's the thing. So Shadow now has a lot of auto crit in the tree as well on a lot of its big abilities. So that's another one where it's like, yeah, maybe not my favorite trinket for that spec. But in general, this is going to be a very powerful trinket if you're into the effect. And the only other thing that I want to mention is that this is considered one of the rare items in the raid. So it's going to have a lower drop chance, and everyone is going to be trying to get it. So expect to be like complaining and arguing over this thing pretty much all tier. It's like
gonna be the Deathbringer's Will of this expansion for all you classic players.
Yeah, I'm not a classic Andy, but
it's a trinket from ICC. It's disgusting for melee.
So Living, I think what's worthwhile to note, especially for like Evoker, because I think one point that's worth sort of highlighting, I think, is that you can get pretty good amounts of crit and mastery if you basically just tilt into those two.
Yep. And
that looks good, and that looks kind of like the way to gear for Devastation right now. Of course, you have less stats in the first tier. Like that's a no-brainer, and like of course that's a thing. But you're most likely as Devastation just going to take those points out of like Haste and Verse, right? You're not going to run. You're going to run as little Verse as possible. You're going to run a bit of Haste, and you're mostly going to try and dump as much as you can into Crit and Mastery. Yeah, Haste Breakpoint is a kind of rough way to put it, because there are a couple things right now that like I might characterize as requiring a Haste Breakpoint. For example, when we're talking about sort of the forbidden tech, right? So essentially, what we'll do is we'll go Dragonrage, Eternity Surge, Fire Breath, bam, 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 Fire Breath, and then as soon as we can at the end, tip the scales, Eternity Surge, and we should be able to get our max duration Dragon Rage. So here we go. We'll try it now. We'll do boop. Yeah, so we got the extension. And so that's one here where if I go to if I go here, I've got my 38 second Dragon Rage, right? This is one where in order to be able to do that, I need to be so I don't pretend that I played that optimally. I played that basically for the express purpose of trying to get the 38 second Dragon Rage. I wasn't even thinking about anything else. But you can kind of note that to accomplish this, right, it helped that I was in Bloodlust. It helped that, that I basically was good about proccing Disintegrate, so that I got my Fire Breath refresh early enough, right? So that the Feed the Flames extension, refresh happened. And then, just ultimately, once I've succeeded in doing that, and if I reliably hit the Fire Breath extension or refresh before 32 seconds, then I have enough haste to pull it off. And then you can, basically just make sure that you're playing correctly around that. But that's a sort of a thing, right? This is something that I would describe as requiring a certain amount of haste to do successfully. Is being able to sort of consistently get the 2 Fire Breaths in the Dragonrage window, and it's not like that's super hard to do, but it's tricky to accomplish every single time if you have no haste, no Bloodlust, no PI, right? So that's one where if you were to run, something like 20% haste, you would be able to do it a lot more reliably. But that doesn't necessarily mean it makes sense to gear for it. It's just that that's something that you might consider to be, a quote-unquote breakpoint, right? So I wouldn't necessarily say it's better to clip every single Disintegrate, but no, to be clear though, in a world where you have, you're on max Essence Burst and you're just sitting there spamming Disintegrate, yeah, you can probably clip that thing early and have relatively little penalty involved. Yeah, and so like that's kind of why I wanted to show that like you have to really try for it. You have to use Tip the Scales on the second Eternity Surge, and you have to be ready for when it's coming up off cooldown, and you have to lead with Eternity Surge, right? So you always have to you'd have to literally go Dragonrage Eternity Surge in order for it to work. And then yeah, I'm not sure what the exact correct opener is with that setup. We were playing with it with Sail a little bit before, and it honestly, so it seems like it's not necessarily important / consistent on the average sim to do most of the time, because again, when you do your Dragonrage without Bloodlust or PI, it's you don't have a great likelihood of getting your Fire Breath refresh every single time, and so it's not a huge gain necessarily to be able to do that. Yeah, and so I think, and to be clear, like, when you're doing it with Bloodlust, you should have a good buffer. Like, you should have a good amount of, like, leeway. It's really just when you don't have external haste that it is tricky, right? I kind of went ham because I hadn't practiced it really, but it's not like I was close. Like, I think I refreshed Fire Breath like a full 5 seconds early or something like that. Like, it was pretty good. That's not necessarily going to inform gearing, I don't think, right away, but it's interesting just to note that like that is a situation where haste matters in the current sort of setup as something to do, like as something to be able to accomplish with more haste. But then also the other side of it, strictly speaking, is that it also means that there is something that you benefit from when you get PI. So it's not that necessarily, like, we'll see. Like, PI right now looks like it's decent on Devastation. It's not clear necessarily that it's outrageously good, but if PI means that you can reliably get a 38-second Dragonrage without doing too much crazy nonsense, and that means that you can have a strong 38-second Dragonrage every single time, including towards the end of fights, well, that's really good, right? So if we're looking at that thing now and it's like, you know, something like 8, 9, 10% gain, let's say it's 8 or 9% with PI, that's not bad. That's approaching, I think, the top tier of PI getters. It's not necessarily the top, but it's a good class to PI. right? So it's an interesting one. The only tricky part, yeah, so that's the thing. The only tricky part is that Evoker, when using Dragonrage optimally, is doing two things. One, sometimes it's delaying it a couple seconds for Fire Breath and Eternity Surge to come up off cooldown, and or two, it's delaying Dragonrage a little bit because it actually wants to Dragonrage closer to the end of the fight than on cooldown. Those two things are true. So, ideally, you can rip the Healing Priest's PI, and the Warlock can have the Shadow Priest PI, right? That would be good. Because, you know. Because again, Devastation, it's on a 2-minute cooldown, but it's on a 2-minute cooldown where you might want to delay it sometimes. And that gets a little bit awkward if you're trying to do it with the Shadow Priest, because the Shadow Priest is going to want their own PI as well. Right? Shadow Priest is going to want to make sure that they're just on 2 minutes like clockwork. And Shadow doesn't really have a lot of reasons to delay their cooldown, unless mechanics happen. So, yeah, it's not so much about losing it with the Shadow situation. It's just that, again, it's a matter of matching timing. You take the Holy Priest one, the Lock gets the Disc Priest. That's what I'm talking about. Alright, YouTube, that's going to do it for this one. Be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video and want to see more in the future. Until next time, have a good one. Thanks for the follow. I'm just, it's late and I have no idea what I'm reading right now and forgetting my activity feed. But you know what? Thank you for the follow. Much appreciated. Okay.
Oh, I'm throwing balls at you.
Oh, thank you, stupid Aussie. It's from The Simpsons.